Hey, Peace of Christ, Pastor Josh here. If you haven't heard yet, our worship space design committee has come to a finish line. They have a design they're ready to present to you. But before we go on, why? Let's just ask that question. Some of you have been wondering that. Why? Why redo our space? Why make any changes? Why do anything differently? Why spend the money? And really, to answer that, I want to ask you a question. And by the way, I'm going to answer the question. But who is this space for? Who is this space for? Is it for us? For us to feel at home? Or is it also for our community? And I believe ultimately that our worship space isn't just for us, it's for our community. And as I think about reaching our community, I don't just think about statistics, although that's important. It's important to know that 50% of people don't know who Jesus is, 75% don't have a church home. But for me, I think about my neighbors, people around me that don't know who Jesus is, that don't have a church home. And quite honestly, I want them to know who Jesus is. I want them to find a church home, a place that can build them up in Jesus Christ and share the gospel with them every single day. I want them to be a part of this church, because I love this church and I want them to love it too. But it's interesting, as I think about my neighborhood, there's this weird thing. My house was built in 1997. Our worship space was completed. Our current worship space was completed in 1997. Isn't that cool? I think that's probably a God thing. But it's interesting, as I talk to my neighbors, most of them, not all of them, but most of them have ripped out their 90s kitchen and replaced it with something more modern. Now, when we ask who this space is for and why we're updating it, I wish I had like a big statistic that just blew your mind. But for me, if I'm honest, is kind of a gut thing. That if their 90s kitchens don't make them feel at home in their houses, then is it possible that they won't feel at home in our 90s worship center? Now, don't get me wrong, I love our worship center. I feel at home there. I'm glad to worship there. I'm glad to bring my family there. But that's really not what the question is. The question is, who is this space for? And I believe as Christians, we're called not to just be about what happens in here, although that's important, but we're called to be about the people that we want to reach. And see, we want this place to be for our community. Yes, we want it to be authentic to us. Yes, there needs to be a cross front and center. Yes, it needs to be all about Jesus. Yes, all those things are true. But we want our friends and neighbors, the people living around us, the people that don't have a church home, the people that don't know Jesus, to walk into our space and feel at home. And so that's really the why. And that's why I'm really excited for what the committee has done. I'm going to be honest, probably none of us agree with the worship space redesign 100%. None of us maybe would have done everything the same in our home, but really that's what our home is for. Our home's for us to feel totally at home, for everything to be done the way that we want it to be. But with a shared space, it's really about the consensus. And I believe there's really good consensus around this design. Council was really positive about it. And so on October 22nd, I want you to show up. I want you to come with your questions. I want you to come with open minds. And I want you to come hear Brian talk about what we've come up with. That's what he got to lead. That's what the committee did. They came up with a design, but really excited about that. That's October 22nd after our late service. But then council and myself, we believe that it's important that wherever we go, that we go together. And we believe it's really important to move forward with this to reach one more in Christ, but we believe it's even more important that we move forward together. And so we're going to have a consensus vote, a chance for you to tell us what you think, a chance for you to say yes or no to the design that's presented, and that's going to happen on November 12th. And really what I want you to think about, what we want you to think about is, can you move forward? Are you okay moving forward with this design? Can we move forward with this design together? But as you're thinking and praying about that, I want you to think about, who is this space for? Yes, it's for us. Yes, it needs to be authentic for us. Yes, it needs to feel at home. But ultimately, we want this to be a place where our community can be invited into. Because we as a church, we want to reach one more in Christ, and then we want to do it 1,000 times over. Why? Because we want everyone to know the truth and the grace and the promise that we have in the gospel. Thank you guys. You guys have a blessed day. Thanks for your partnership in reaching one more in